Good
evening and thank you for joining us. My name is Faye D'Souza. This is Live with Faye on YouTube. I appreciate you investing your time in this conversation and being part of the conversation that we're having. Like I told you yesterday, we're discussing what's going on with our farmers. Now, we hadn't expected things to take the turn that it has taken right now. To put it very bluntly, the Haryana police has been using force against the farmers who are marching to Delhi. Now, Punjab farmers have been marching to Delhi as part of their protest against the, against the laws that the government has brought on farm. Remember, we talked about this multiple times on the show, what those laws entail and why the farmers are protesting. But they're walking through Haryana to get to Delhi. Barricades have been put up in Haryana. And as you can see right now, there was a flashpoint that happened where on a narrow bridge near the border between Punjab and Haryana, farmers actually toppled those barricades, as you can see. Some of these barricades were thrown over the bridge into the river. Protesters refused to move back. The Haryana police actually then used force. They used water cannons, as you can see, fired tear gas on those farmers. It's actually very cruel to be using water cannons in the weather that North India is going through right now. It is very cold. Considering that these farmers are camping out there, to be camping out in soaking clothing would actually be bitterly cold. Haryana continued its crackdown. Yogendra Yadav and 50 other farmer activists were detained at Gurgaon in their attempt to cross into Delhi. One of the reasons that were actually used was that they were violating COVID, norms of gathering, which is really interesting because Yogendra Yadav actually said that COVID has not, rules have not applied for anything else so far. Politicians have been gathering large numbers of people, but when farmers gather, suddenly the COVID rules are being brought into play. That's a visual that you're seeing of Yogendra Yadav being taken in by the police to detention. Farmers from 6 states, Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Kerala and Punjab have been planning a protest for 2 months for today as the country celebrates Constitution Day. And that's the protest that you're seeing. A couple of questions to ask today. First of all, at the end of the day, if the protests are peaceful, is there a reason why these farmers are not being allowed to enter Delhi? Why is it that the Haryana government the Haryana police is using force on farmers who are using the national highway right now? And is there a reason why the government won't listen to these farmers, even the fact that they've been protesting for months now? Why isn't there an offer to sit down and speak to them? There's also been a war of words that's broken out between the Haryana Chief Minister and the Punjab Chief Minister. The Haryana Chief Minister accusing the Punjab Chief Minister of basically misleading the farmers into protest. Joining me today to help us answer all of these questions, Mr. Avik Saha is the National Convenor of the Kisan Andolan. Mr. Chengal Reddy is the Chief Advisor of the Consortium of Indian Farmers Association. And Mr. Yogesh Pandey is a farmer activist. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining us. Mr. Saha, if I may please start with you. I know that you are in constant touch with the farmer groups that are currently protesting. Would you give us an update on their safety at this point and what they plan to do if they're being stopped at Haryana?
Everyone is safe as per reports received. They are camping out. It's at night. There's no plan to travel through the night or any such thing. Wherever they are, and they're at various points at borders, at toll plazas, and they are all camping out. The problem is that we were planning on this camping out at the Delhi border. We were expecting the government not to allow images of lakhs of farmers gathering in Delhi to go public. That was understandable political tactic. We were not ready for the Haryana police acting as a surrogate for the Delhi police and stopping the farmers. So this is a new challenge, but we had always told the farmers that this is a long haul, and many visuals have come out, especially from Punjab farmers, that they're here for months together if required, and they've got provisions and ration and everything with them. So, no safety issue for farmers as of now. We are constantly spreading the word of peace. We do not want any combat with the police. We will sit down in a sit in protest. This is a civil disobedience movement. This is not about violence. And I fear, though, that as the protest swells, because many people were initially not joining these marches and these cavalcades, but now it seems like the support is growing. So the numbers will also grow tomorrow. And I do hope that the police will be sensible, especially the Haryana police, and allow them passage. When we reach Delhi, we will deal with Mr. Modi, Mr. Amit Shah, and their police as it comes. Faye.
Mr. Saab, first question, those taken into detention, Yogendra Yadav and the others, are they still in police custody?
It's not just Yogendra Yadav, actually. The detention started last evening.
Okay.
Medha Patkar and Pratibha Shinde, two of our lady comrades and leaders from South India, were leading a large contingent of over 1,000 people from various states, Telangana, even Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Karnataka, and they were coming into Delhi through UP. And at 8 p.m., they were stopped on a bridge. I don't know what is it with the BJP government and its bridges. They were stopped on a bridge near a jungle and have been kept in detention since then. All they said was, we will travel straight to Delhi. We do not camp anywhere in UP, but they were not allowed. They were told that you instead go through Rajasthan if you want. But that's a dangerous route, and they didn't take it. So there's a dharna there. They're under detention. Many senior leaders, you see, now it's a very large confederation now. There is senior leaders who were picked up from Manjuka Tila Gurdwara in Delhi today. Kakkaji, Shiv Kumar Sharma. Yes, he's in custody. And KV Biju, I think his name is. And there's an Abhimanyu Kuhar, I think. They are also in custody. So there's Medha Patkar, Pratibha Shinde, Kakkaji and Associates. There was Yogesh, who is now released. He was released at about 7 o'clock on a PR bond. And this is the continuing story. So actually, these arrests of the prominent leaders, the known faces, is not really the police's concern. What the police, Haryana police especially, has been doing for the last 2 days is they are arresting the mobilizing leaders, the village level leaders. So more than 100 are in preventive detention in Haryana police stations. And the police believe that these arrests will lead to a slowdown in the mobilization. In fact, just the reverse is happening. Mobilization is speeding up.
Well, Mr. Saad, the visual that we're looking at right now, this is the flashpoint between the protesting farmers of Punjab in Haryana, where they moved the barricades physically and toppled some of them over the bridge, we understand. Now, some would argue that this brings out a reaction from the police, and the police then decided to use force because of the fact that these barricades were broken. What is the response to the fact that the farmers broke through these barricades?
These are Punjab farmers, Faye.
Yes.
They have been protesting for 60 days in Punjab. They have been sitting on train lines, highways, barricading Reliance petrol pumps, malls. They have been sitting at toll plazas, allowing toll-free travel. And not one report has emerged from Punjab of any violence. These same farmers are now traveling through Haryana, and you get to see these images. So the government is actually perpetrating violence on the farmers. The government is pushing the farmers. The government is trying to take it to a breaking point. And I fear one thing, and I mean, I'm not being dramatic. I seriously fear it because in recent history, in the last 10 years, it has been a BJP government that has shot farmers dead. It used to happen. The Congress has also done it, but that was, more than 2 decades ago. But in 2017, the Shivraj Singh government shot dead 6 farmers in Mandsaur. And that's what brought about the confederations of farmers, and this big farmers movement evolved from that. So I don't think Mr. Modi's government will shoot farmers. That will be very stupid. But the police sometimes act in excess of the powers that they receive, and it's not that they are always under political control.
Mhm.
So these are bad images to see. These
Yes.
are not right images.
I don't normally put out my opinion, but I would agree with you. Let me just read out a couple of comments coming in. Bharat Raval says, why is the Haryana police so concerned if the farmers are marching to Delhi? Why is the Haryana police getting in between? That's the question we're also asking. Vishal says, we as a society have lost our ability to empathize with our fellow citizens unless we're also suffering the exact same thing. Aman Peshawari, the police in BJP ruled states are working overtime to stop opposition politicians and farmers instead of maintaining law and order. Why is such force not deployed to stop crime against women? Is this the role of the police to do the bidding of politicians? We've actually spent a lot of time talking about the role of the police and how it invariably has become to do the bidding of politicians. But let me bring in my other guests as well. Mr. Chengal Reddy joins me out of Telangana. Mr. Reddy, good evening and thank you for joining us. You've been actually for the last 3 years telling us that there will come a point where farmers will say enough is enough. Is it this that point in your opinion, Mr. Reddy?
See, the whole issue is now totally confused by everyone. See, we have been trying for reforms for almost more than 2 to 3 decades, ever since Mr. Sarat Joshi came onto the picture in 1980s. The famous Nippani agitation, 10, 12 days, and then 10 people were killed and all that. See, the point which I am also, in fact, I am at aghast, not able to understand. Look at Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, wherein huge quantity of rice, wheat are procured, and there is no agitation from any of these states, public agitation. Of course, there are some people who are really supporting. There is no doubt about that. See, today the question which I am asking for myself, and I am also sharing with my friends, is what is that we are agitating for? Are we against reforms? Now, what are the reforms? It is not one, two, three, because these same reforms of markets, of investments, technologies came in 1990 for industry and service sector, and in the last 30 years they have helped. Now, the same reforms farmers have been demanding, and they have now come. So, are we opposing these reforms? That is number one question. The second is this problem in Punjab and Haryana is it's about MSP. Yes, as far as MSP is concerned, we are all aware in the last 30, 40 years, the government of India has, after constituting this FCI and CSCP procurement, almost 40, 50 years, they are doing this announcement of MSP, but it is limited to few crops. Procurement is limited to 7, 8%, that to 2, 3 states, and the rest they announce, but there is no procurement, there is nothing about that. And then here is a problem which I have seen observed in the last 10, 15 years. Most of the procurements are done by state governments. Look at Chhattisgarh today. They are announcing a bonus and paying directly to the farmer's account. So also in Andhra, Telangana and other areas. Now here is a very peculiar situation wherein the Punjab farmers, you see, look at the very peculiar situation I am also not able to analyze and understand. 90% of rice, wheat produced in Punjab, Haryana are procured by FCI and at MSP, and it is going on for decades. Now, yesterday, the reforms have come. The government says MSP is there and procurement is there by the state government, and FCI procures, and there is a public distribution system in place. All these things are there. But then the agitation is something which has assumed great proposition, and then it is being discussed across. To be honest with you, I don't know where I stand, because I am also absolutely confused, because the reforms are which we are welcome, but the agitation in Punjab no, there is no response or reaction in other states, which is, to be honest, which is very confusing.
Let's allow Avik sir to address this before we bring in our next guest. 2 points raised by Mr. Chengal Reddy. One, are we opposing the reforms brought in by government? 2, if the Punjab farmers are in fact getting access to the food corporation at MSP procurement, why is there a protest right now, Mr. Saha?
I have great respect for Mr. Chengal Reddy. He has been a farmer leader and has worked for farmers' interests for decades. He mentioned Sharad Joshi ji, who has been one of the greatest farmer leaders of the country. Unfortunately, when we compare reforms, let's say in America or Europe, with the reforms required in India, the same model will not work. Primarily because of the difference. You see, they have had 300 years of colonial growth, exploitation of other territories, extraction of wealth from those territories, and enriching themselves. We have remained a poor country primarily because all our wealth has been siphoned away. So, other than the pedantics of economics and farm economics, the point is very simple. The farmer is a producer of an essential commodity. There is nobody argues with that. What the farmer produces, everyone needs. It's not a seasonal fashionable thing. So the farmer says, look, I'm a producer.
Mm-hmm.
You secure my livelihood, which means he asks for 2 things. It's actually mostly she. 70% of the farming work is done by women. She asks for 2 things. 1, you be my boss. You set the price in the market. You decide. You have economists. You have such a big department. You decide price of all crops, not just these 23 crops that Mr. Reddy was talking about. And you create an ecosystem where I get the prices. The farmer is not concerned with the government purchasing it. Historically, what Mr. Reddy said is right. For FCI has been procuring everything in Punjab. Ask me why. I come from Bengal. Bengal produces more paddy than Punjab. Procurement should have happened in Bengal. But anyway, so this is what the farmer's ask was. Decide the price for all my crops and create an ecosystem. You are the government. I vote you to power. Make sure that my income security is there. And Mr. Modi is not arguing with this. I'll double your income. Farmers' income needs to grow. Every grain of crop will be purchased at MSP. These are statements coming from him. Now, these laws, which are labeled as reform, you see, just because you call them reform, necessarily are not reform, create a market-driven system of buying and selling. Now, a good market is one where the players have equal strength. If you look at boxing as a sport, why does it have weight categories? Because very heavy persons cannot fight with very light persons and expect the light person to win. So this market economic principle, demand supply driven price economics, will not work, and this is what these laws fail to address. What nobody is arguing, Faye, about MSP going, markets being destroyed. I mean, those who are saying it without understanding the law. Of course, the markets will remain. But if you, Faye, as a person who purchases things, if there's a 10% discount in a market and the adjoining market has 10% higher price consequently, which market would you go to? You will obviously go to the cheaper market. So you don't have to say, I will destroy APMC, but by your actions, which are quite well written in the law, APMCs will get destroyed. But I'm not here to protect APMCs. My concern is simple. Can you create this ecosystem where the farmer gets a price? That's what the farmer is asking for. And if you can't, please don't peddle these laws and say that this is the future of the farmer. And one last thing, even if this is, let's say for argument's sake, Mr. Modi is right and these laws will take the farmer to heaven. There has been no discussion on how this will take the farmer to a better economic situation. Remember, 2022 is the year by which Mr. Modi's fabled doubling of income is supposed to come into effect. And the reality is that they're standing at zero. So there'll be 100% growth in 2 years. So this is a magic potion that Mr. Modi keeps selling again and again and again. And there are no buyers anymore for that. That potion doesn't work. It doesn't give the magic that Mr. Modi is promising to sell. So these laws cannot be accepted unless there is an inherent system by which MSP is legalized and MSP is assured. It's not enough to legalize it also. There are hundreds of laws which are not implemented. And if Mr. Modi addresses that question, he'll be addressing the largest vote bank in the country. He's a politician, he should understand it. Future reform at the cost of people's present and a large number of people is not reform, it's genocide.
Okay. Before I bring in Yogesh Pandey, and I ask your patience and indulgence, Mr. Pandey, but Mr. Chengal Reddy, do you want to respond to that? Because Mr. Saha has really taken time to answer your question.
I beg to differ with my friend. See, look at Korea, Taiwan, some of these small countries where agriculture has become profitable. You see, what fundamentally in the Indian context, apart from all the things my friend was saying, we have in the last 30, 40 years, you see, our productivity is virtually stagnated. And we have 60% under rain-fed conditions. We have no security system in regard to calamities, low prices, problems of market variations. And all our extension systems have failed. Your crop insurance, credit banking systems have failed. The problem in the country is in the last 30 years, service again in this industry service have grown because government has become incidental. I mean, it's not that I am support private or no. I want basically, the question is how can you build competitiveness of Indian farmers? Our soldiers are the best in the world. Our doctors are the best. Our computer boys are the best. Everybody is best except farmer. Why? Let me give you a very simplest example. If 3 of my sons, one go to military, one go to America, one is a farming, why is that they are prospering and they are becoming famous, they are becoming economical, but not me? Look at Indian agriculture. Today, we haven't allowed genetic technology in the last 20 years.
Mr. Reddy, yeah, so my question to you is, do you believe that the 3 farm laws that the government has brought in is the solution to the problem that you are now stating?
Absolutely. Yes, I firmly believe they are, I mean, maybe not 100%, but major issues of that are there brought in these reforms are, first of all, there is this contract farming, which will consolidate small holdings because investments will come through from private, NRA, etc., etc. Second is this tenancy laws and liberalization is extremely good for small farmers across because again, they will lead to consolidation. And AP reforms bringing in private sector is definitely good. See, what is wrong in this private sector, these companies, corporates, I don't understand. Today, your entire defense industry, your electronic industry, your every industry, there is a private sector, there is a corporation, there is everybody. Why should we farmers fear? I mean, who is going to take away our lands or who is going to encroach upon us? No, I firmly believe that these reforms are the first step in the right direction, which in about 5 to 10 years time will make Indian agriculture globally competitive, not simply sustaining. I believe that it is globally competitive and these reforms are the first steps initiated and I welcome them.
Okay, so Chengal Reddy welcomes it, and Mr. Saha, I give you an opportunity to respond to this, but I do have to bring in Yogesh Pandey, who I know will agree a little bit with Chengal Reddy, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Pandey, what is your reaction to what we're seeing on our screen? Police using force against farmers. So there are actually 2 things happening here. One is whether or not, as farm activists, the 3 of you agree with the reasons of protest. 2, the democratic right to peaceful protest. And even if, let's just say, all these farmers are misled, as the government is calling them, is it right to, douse them with cold water in the middle of winter and to prevent them from entering their capital city? Delhi is everybody's capital city. Mr. Pandey, go ahead.
Yeah, Faye, today is a constitutional day, and it's very unfortunate that the farmers of this nation are suffering. Okay, keep that issue aside, whether they are misled or what is in that law, whether it is right or wrong. But this is not the way to treat the farmers. Okay, all 3 of us will unanimously agree on this issue. Now the part is like that MSP is a big myth, Faye. The 70 years of our independence and we always speak about MSP. But really, Faye, that MSP had never been mandatory. It's just a lip service, It's just benchmark price. But did a farmer ever got that MSP? What is exactly MSP? They never got that MSP. And there are several other producers. Take it wheat, take it horticulture, take it Ayurvedic products, herbs, take it shrubs. So they never got that benefit of that MSP. So the farmers agitating that they should get a assured MSP. Government would have added one line in that law that farmers, all the agreements among the buyers and sellers, there will not be out the MSP price. There's nothing wrong in the demand made by farmers. But on the contrary, government should step ahead and ensure that this farmer demand are considered. Now, we are speaking about the rights of the farmer. Faye, so agriculture, there is a big confusion. The agriculture is a subject of exactly whose? Is it subject of the state or is it subject of center? In the 70 years of our independence, state makes their own law, center comes, they make their own law, and at the end of the day, who is the sufferer? The farmer is the sufferer. Right now, Chengalji has very rightly said that we need some liberalized policy now. We have to see ahead. We need, because for last 70 years there has been so much laws and restrictions on the farmer. Why so much on farmers? On the contrary, other all sectors have been opened up. So you should open up the agriculture sector also. Agriculture should treat it on the benchmark as an industry. Farmers should be, they should get all the benefits as an industry. Why not farmers is treated as a corporate? So we need to have that change in attitude. Not only, hello, are you getting my voice, Faye?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
We're all listening, Mr. Pandey. None of us interrupt on this show.
Okay. Sorry, I thought because I couldn't see, so I was just speaking. So Faye, the point I want to make, we have to have a very broader way, and our policy should be liberalized policy. In this law, we had discussed last time also. Only there one addition has to be made, and no law is perfect. And again, if Mr. Modi ji is making promises that this law will make doubling the income, sorry, that is not the story also. But this has been a demand of the farmers that APMC, because last time also we had done several times this show regarding APMC and how the farmers have been, there is a sense of in Maharashtra also among the farmers that they have been cheated, or there is no mechanism in APMC. They are the giver, they are price taker. The purchaser, he decides the price and farmer has to take what price he's been paid. So if there is an alternative arrangement been made, and if there is a protection by law wherein the farmer can sell his produce outside the APMC market, what's wrong in that? There is nothing. So we should welcome this. That's why there is a difference among the farmers. Let all of three us accept that all the farmers are not on one side on these three laws. There is a difference of opinion among the farmers, and that's why the things in Punjab and Haryana are a bit different, because major there the wheat is being grown there, and there is a fear among the farmers that they will not get that assured price in Punjab. So that's why I think there is agitation is more in the northern part as compared to rest of nation. So in Maharashtra, I haven't seen that sort of opposition to this all the three bills. Rather, okay, farmers are saying that we need more freedom beyond this all these three laws. And the point which Avik ji had raised, that MSP has to be made mandatory, is very right, because the cost of agriculture, cost of selling, and cost of cultivation.
Yes. So here's the question. The Punjab government, the Punjab legislature has passed a law sort of circumventing what the central government has passed. Does that not serve the purpose? Will it not assure the Punjab farmers of the MSP that they seek? Mr. Saha, do you want to answer that question? And then I'll come back to Yogesh.
Yeah. The Punjab government has published some political brochures. They are not laws. They've talked about MSP only for wheat and rice. Although Punjab itself grows a lot of cotton, which are all MSP crops, a lot of groundnut. There are so many other crops. You see, the lawyer in me has kicked in. So just two quick things. In my understanding of the Constitution of India, the government of India did not have the right to make these laws. And consequently, the government of Punjab, in abrogating these laws, also did not have the right. So we are slowly moving towards a very major constitutional crisis so far as these laws are concerned.
No, but why do you say, Mr. Saha, forgive me for interrupting you, but why do you say the government of India did not have the right to bring in these laws?
Because the constitution is very clear. It has three lists. Who can make what laws, and there is a list where there is a commonality. You can also make, I can also make. And if I, as the central government, make it, my law will be stronger than yours. It's as simple as that. Agriculture is not in the center's list. And the impact of all these laws is on agriculture. Trade, interstate trade is, and the center is trying to use that ruse to pass these laws. But the impact will be not just on interstate trade, it will be on agriculture itself. So anyhow, assuming that they all had the right to make laws, what the Punjab government has done is, it has created a political statement on behalf of the Congress party on what it wants to say about these laws. None of these laws, neither the center's laws nor the state's laws, will have any immediate impact. Because remember, the center's laws have been there for 6 months now. And you know, this potato crisis, this onion crisis, the low prices that our farmers are getting for paddy in many states, including the state which BJP just won, Bihar. So, for a moment, I see three questions emerging from this discussion. One, industrial agriculture is the way forward, and these laws will help industrialization of agriculture and consolidation of holdings. My response to this is two. Number one, large industry, steel, airlines, every large industry in this country is running to the government every day for haircut. The banks have to give up money. So this completely private sector, this completely unregulated sector is a major beneficiary. And I can quote the figures. I think by last count, it was something like 40 lakh crores. So this is what liberalization means. Liberalization merely means that my profits are privatized, my losses are socialized. And we are seeing it every day. So this is what liberalization in Indian context means. The second thing Mr. Reddy said was about large holdings emerging out of these laws. I'm sure Mr. Reddy will agree with me that the largest holdings exist in the United States of America. Farmers are committing suicide there. There are no small marginal farmers in America. So what is the outcome of the consolidation of holdings in America? Mr. Reddy wanted to compare Taiwan and Korea and their success in agriculture with the Indian context. My humble submission is that as food producers and as geographic countries, they are too small to be compared. I mean, if democracy is working very great in, let's say, our society, a housing society, we can't say that, you know, it's working great in India too. There are different contexts, there are different sizes, and we have to understand it from that perspective. On the APMC question, which Mr. Pandey raised, this is a very clear position. The law to create APMCs was to protect farmers and to create a level playing field. If you look at all the sections, that's what it says. In reality, it has not protected the farmers. In reality, it has become a den of corruption. Mr. Pandey is absolutely right. So when that machine is not working, you have two choices. You can fix that machine or you can throw it away. Mr. Modi wants to throw it away. He doesn't say so. Politically, they say that it will continue, etc., etc. But in reality, we all understand on this show that it will die its own natural death. So a law and a system generated to protect the farmers is being destroyed to create a system where there is no protection. So I think I'm borrowing this from Mr. Yadav. He said that there was a roof, there were a lot of holes in it, and water used to come through the roof. Now Mr. Modi says, let's get rid of the roof. You can see the starlit sky, and you are free. You are liberated. Now, APMCs need correction. Farmers need protection because there is complete unequal bargaining power, whether in APMC or in these private markets.
Forgive me, let me take that particular question because I know that there are three people who have argued this with, Mr. P. Sainath had a conversation with me where he said the same thing. Mr. Yogendra Yadav said the same thing, and so now you are saying the same thing. Let me just take this to Chengal, Reddy and to Yogesh Pandey. What both Mr. Sainath, Mr. Yadav and Mr. Saha argued is that when you open up the market, and I'll take the analogy that Mr. Sainath gave us. He said you have public hospitals and you have private hospitals. You have public schooling, which is your government schools and private schools. Now, it's true government hospitals and government schools are not perfect and they're not as good as private hospitals. But if you take them away altogether, people in this country will not be able to afford schooling or healthcare. They serve a certain purpose. What needs to be done is that both of these systems need to be improved. There is no need for the private sector to cater to or look after our farmers. The private sector only looks after its own shareholders, as it has done in private hospitals and in private schooling, where it has looked out for its own bottom line in every aspect. Where is the assurance, Mr. Chengal Reddy, that the private sector, when brought into the farming, industry, the way that it is being done right now, will care for the needs of our farmers, which is what Mr. Saha is arguing. How do we know that the private sector will prioritize in any way the needs of the farmers?
See, we must first of all understand the private sector can't survive without farmers' supply of raw material and long-term agreements. Look at mango. I'll give you the best, simplest example. We have 1,000 varieties in India. We have 20 million tons we produce, but we don't even export 20,000 tons. Look at what has happened in the last 15, 20 years. You have today some drink called Maza mango drink, which is made available. Who made it available? It's not government of India. Firstly, the small scale industries came, they started processing mango pulp, and then some big company came, they started distributing, and is now exporting. Look at the problem today. What we have to understand is the so-called rice wheat is only about 10-15% of Indian agriculture. So look at oil seeds, look at pulses, look at commercial crops, look at spices, horticulture. Who is supporting whom? They are all surviving on their own. Look at prawn culture today in India. We are one of the best. We are exporting some 300 million, some huge quantity to India. Look at what is happening in meat sector. That is the largest exporter today in India. And look at the other problem like spices. Today, you look at spices, you have a coffee board, tea board, tobacco board, because you haven't allowed private sector to come up in India today. These sectors are lagging behind. See, the question here is, why is that this mindset has come that everywhere in the country that private is bad? Yes, private could be bad, but government is equally bad. See, you ask any government employee whether he wants to send his children to government school and he wants to take his wife to government hospital. The answer is simple, no. Why is that leaders are all going to America private hospital? Why is we are sending our children to Harvard and Oxford? Look, as far as farm sector is concerned, a lot of misapprehensions have been created. Believe me, small farming is not difficult. Small farming can be made profitable, successful, sustainable, provided you have the fundamentals to be supported farm farming. First of all, the inputs and other things, extension services, and then give them water and electric, which their water is required because you have 60% still and rain-fed conditions. And last but not least, you have to give them some security, because almost 20-30% of Indian farm sector farmers are susceptible for nature's fury, drought, cyclone and all that, and also market fluctuations. Herein government can bring in some more reforms which can protect the small farmers' interest. Already, yeah.
So, Mr. Chengal Reddy, from looking at the screen right now, do you believe that this is a government that will be interested in providing these farmers with the security, the water, the electricity? Because at the end of the day, if you have a farmer with a few acres of land, arguing a contract with a private corporate who has a team of lawyers, that's an uneven, that's an uneven match. They will need, like you said, protection from government. Is this the government likely to give that protection?
You are forgetting fundamentally that in 1950, Jawaharlal Nehru deprived farmers of their right to property, madam. Illegally, he did it by a nominated parliament. Until now, we farmers have no right to property. Our lands can be taken over. See, we must understand politics, politicians, administration, even judiciary has miserably failed. All the three constitutional institutions have failed to protect the farmers' interest in the last 70 years. We have no hope of see either present or past. You see, look at, I mean, not that I want to say, look at 2007 when Swaminathan report came. The great Congress party was there for 7 years. What did they do? They did nothing. Achha, what did this Mr. Modi did in 2014 BJP manifesto? You see, he gave us a number of promises. I myself had met the then commission chair, that manifesto committee chairman. He was kind enough to include, but Modi was rejected. And then the reforms have come. See, funniest part of it today is we don't know whether to thank Mr. Modi for these reforms or I would like to thank COVID for these reforms because they have come. I don't know how they have come, but God sent opportunity. They have come, and we are happy. The issue today is, as far as the police is concerned, the way they behave. I don't want to go into details because that's a bitter experience in entire country. The way police are being used by political parties and what politicians do, what chief ministers and prime ministers do. I'm not competent to, comment on them because they're all great people. But as far as farm sector is concerned, yes, it is possible that Indian farm sector can be developed as competitive, provided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As far as the present situation is concerned, well, I don't see any difference. When Mr. Advani wanted to get into Bihar, he was prevented. As I told you, number of farmers' agitations, they were killed. By whom? Which party? Everybody. See, whoever is there as a CM or PM, they go on with their policies, and governments and police or collectors, they are all their subordinates. And our own courts, whether it is Supreme Court or High Court, they are no less. When I filed a writ in Supreme Court about implementing Swaminathan committee, the two judges bench rejected it just in 3 sentences, saying that, look, this is an issue, complicated issue. That is how the Supreme Court itself has behaved. I mean, not that I want to comment on judges, but the fact is that in 72 years, we have been betrayed and will continue to be betrayed. Only by sheer accident, some reforms come. If they come, thanks to whatever it is, we will be happy to take forward and try to see if we can make it competitive. Yes.
Let me just read out some of the people who are asking questions. Also, I want to acknowledge, Prashant Kanchandani for supporting us, Jennifer Fernandez, Sridhar Raghuram, Aman Peshawari, who says the irony of Constitution Day that the police is violating the fundamental right to protest. Also, on Constitution Day, Mr. Chengal Reddy saying not a single government in the last 70 years has upheld the rights of the farmers, and that's actually very, very sad.
They deprived us of a property right, madam. The fundamental property right, which is now declared by United Nations as a human right, has been denied by these successive governments, politicians, administrators, and judiciary in this country for last 65 years. Even today, it is not being implemented in any state on any of these land acquisitions or laying electricity pipelines or electricity towers. These chaps are still depriving us of even bare minimum compensation. That's the situation. I'm sorry. I'm okay. Please go ahead.
Anirudh Sabo says, why new technologies are not being introduced? The same thing that Chengal Reddy is saying. The problem is farmers don't get money. Bharat Travel says we should address police brutality on Constitution Day. Sushila, thank you for supporting us. And Pavan Kumar completely agree with Yogendra Yadav. Why is this not happening across all states? Why is it concentrated? Thank you for this debate. Bringing in Yogesh Pandey one more time. Mr. Pandey, do you want to respond to what Mr. Chengal Reddy said? Because you've also been talking, and I want to talk about the fact that a large number of our farmers have small land holdings.
Exactly.
These are not large, while we talk about, and I want to explore the idea of, mangoes being bought by the companies that make the mango juice, because again, this can happen if you have large acres and acres of land, but a lot of the mangoes do come from Maharashtra, and these are people that you talk to. Tell us what that's really like on the ground.
The Faye, I want to just add up what Mr. Chengal Reddy has just outrightly spoken. First thing is that the stereotype image of the farmer needs to be changed. We call him as an annadata. Data means a donor. He is giving a free service. We have to change that. We should make him a business person, and he should, you tax farming. I am on that's I will definitely advocate and keep this demand that you tax the farming, but then give all the rights as of our corporates to the farmers. Faye, the farmer never get his share into the produce byproducts which are produced from his agriculture products. Now take the example of just in Maharashtra, I'll give an example of sugar and peda. In Pune city, anywhere you get 400 rupees kg below, you will not get a pedas. 400 rupees kg, and we have seen a milk farmer struggling to get even 25-30 rupees. Sugar price is not even 30-35 rupees. So he should get the share from all the processes and all the byproducts. Same is the condition about tomato. Same is about onion. So we need to make a lot of changes, and rightly we need to scrap entire law. The agriculture, this is big mockery. 70 years after independence and our developing of our constitution, who is going to make the laws of for agriculture sector? There is still confusion whether it is a state, whether it is central. I will just add up. Avik rightly said, but then in our constitution, Article 248 and Article 249 gives unfettered power to center, unfettered power to parliament. They can make a law on any subject, any time. They can make the law. Makes no sense. So that's why we need to go to the basics. We need to change all this thing. In India, what is this law that non-farmer can't purchase farmer's land? Now, come on. If I want to do the farming and if I am ready to pay that price, you open up the sector. If someone wants to sell his farm, okay, what's wrong in that? So there are a lot of laws, a big list. Farmers don't get the right on his amount which is receivable from his produce. There is no right. He is never treated as a secured creditor. He is never treated at par. On the contrary, banks are secured creditor. So these are small things. But then we need to make a changes into all this thing. Just making this agitation will not serve. We again, what is the political will in this nation? In Maharashtra now, there is a Congress-led government, Congress, Shiv Sena, and NCP, and in center there is BJP. Even after change in the government in Maharashtra, what are the electricity condition? During this COVID time, there was a scenario where we had a surplus electricity, but still there was a load shedding in Maharashtra. So no one is there to address the farmers' move. No one is there, and that is very sad condition of the farming. That's why we need to have a very reformative. We need to scrap all the things and make a farming at a par to the corporate. That's why there should be no regulations, no restrictions. Make it totally free sector, and all the people. Yeah.
Right. And I just want to, before I bring in Mr. Avik, I just want to remind our audience that the farming system in India is extremely complicated and it's ancient. It predates our government. It predates the British. We must remember there are different kinds of farmers. People who own the land, people who own the land and rent it out, those who rent it out and actually till the land, those who work as labor, and of course the women who don't get counted. There are those who grow cash crops, tobacco, coffee, cotton. There are those who grow fruit, who grow vegetables, tomato, onion, bhindi, cabbage that doesn't last very long. Then, of course, there's milk and there's poultry. Then there's grain, wheat and rice. And those people who grow jowar, bajra, ragi in drier parts of our country, all of these people need to be looked after. And then there are those fundamentally divided by size, acres and acres in an orchard growing coconuts over many, many years, or small tracts of land growing a little bit of vegetables with a little bit of water. These are all farmers. And so it becomes really complicated, and which is why most farm regulation has to happen on the local level. Mr. Saha, do you want to respond to what Mr. Chengal Reddy and Mr. Pandey say, that at the end of the day, reform is necessary. But I also want to remind us that when these farm laws were brought about, they were brought about in the most ad hoc manner. In the middle of a session, in the middle of a pandemic, almost zero discussion in Parliament. They were rammed through while the opposition was protesting against them. For something this complex, to not have discussion about it was unusual for a democracy of our size.
No, Faye, I completely disagree with you. This is Mr. Modi's modus operandi. It's not at all unusual. He does not believe that anyone in this country has a right to say anything. Now, very simply put, I have been on debates with Mr. Reddy when the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana came. Mr. Reddy called it a game changer. Where is that now? So, when someone introduces a reform or even an idea, we tend to look back at what the person had said earlier, done earlier. There's such a thing called track record. And if you look at Mr. Modi's track record, he has littered Indian policy with half-baked, half-done jobs. So, a reform, a so-called reform, whether it is a reform or it is a deform, I don't know. Mr. Reddy knows much more about industrial agriculture than I do. He could be right, but industrial agriculture at no other country has succeeded. The American government is subsidized the completely free, the completely independent, the completely unregulated American farmer much, much more than the Indian government is subsidizing the Indian farmer. These are publicly available statistics. So, the chimera of free market, free farmer, free economy also leads to a free fall. And that's not what the farmer wants. The farmer doesn't want to fall any more than where he or she already is. Now, on the last issue of competitive environment and Indian agriculture being competitive, you see, the core purpose of agriculture is this. There are two segments in society: those who produce for themselves, consume what they produce, and sell the surplus, and those who merely buy. The objective of these laws is to create a very large segment of consumers and a very small segment of producers. This is what we must understand. If Indian farmers are pushed out of farming, they will have to still survive. They will be consumers, like all of us in the city. So, to serve this huge base of consumers, the larger the base of consumers, the greater is the joy in the producer. It is not sustainable for large corporations to have 20 crore farmers producing. They should have 200 producers. This is the actual game, and we must understand it for what it is. So it's not enough to wave flags for or against this law. We must understand why the law has been brought. What is the end game? So, Faye, for the Indian farmer, this is not a game changer. This is a game ender. The Indian farmer is looking at a complete finito, the last point of his life or her life as a farmer.
So, Mr. Saha, quick question now before I wrap up. Obviously, this standoff with the police is going to continue. My heart goes out to those in the protest who are now soaking wet from the water cannons, but still sitting on the road in the middle of a bitterly cold North Indian winter. But what is the plan going forward? Are they going to continue to camp out there over the next few days? Are they going to attempt to walk to Delhi?
Two things. Certain groups will camp out, and certain groups will try to break the barricade and move to Delhi. It's a combination, really. My understanding is that the government will understand by tomorrow that this is not going to work because the farmers are not going back. Why do you barricade something? Because you want to dissuade the person from going forward. And you believe that the person will turn back and go. If the person is not going to turn back and go, do you realize what the Haryana government is doing? It's barricading itself in. So Haryana becomes an island. No one goes in, no one comes out. That will not work. So I think in a day or two, things will pan out. And I think the farmers will reach Delhi. I think there will be a resolution to this problem. And the current and the only sustainable resolution, the viable, not sustainable, the viable resolution is the government keeps the law on cold storage, gets into discussion and engagement, and we'll find a way forward. There will be some give and take, but we'll find a way forward. But if the government insists that the law stays, everything is as it is, and you still have to come and talk to me, the farmers will not even attend this meeting that the government has called on 3rd of December.
Okay, so we're going to leave it there, but we will come back and keep talking about this as we have done for the last 4 years. My team and I are committed to the needs of our farmers. this is like I keep saying, this is not a flashpoint of 1 day or 2 days. Like Mr. Chengal Reddy has said, this is a problem that has existed now for 70 years. It's as old as our country. On Constitution Day, we must remember that the bedrock of our country is equality. So just like we demand rights in our workplace, we demand to be paid fairly, we demand certain rights. There is no reason why our farmers shouldn't be given those rights, why our farmers shouldn't be given a listening ear, why every time when they protest, it's just said that, oh, you know, they're being misled. Like they cannot think for themselves, so they cannot understand the market that they've been functioning in their entire lives, and they can't process their own reality. That, I believe, is unfair. The government must give the farmers a listening ear in the very least, and then and like we've always said, when you make regulations, when you make laws, when you make decisions that will affect the lives of certain groups of people, those groups of people must be included in that decision making. It's the very least that can be done in a democracy. So we're going to leave it here. I want to thank my audience for coming in and paying very close attention. Like I keep saying, it's important for us as urban Indians who consume the products from our farms to understand the system better. Just read more. P. Sainath has a great book called Everyone Loves a Good Drought, or you can read a lot of the documentation or a lot of the articles that are written, available on the internet right now. There are many, many reports. The Swaminathan Committee report is also easily available on the internet. Educate yourself, read about it, ask questions. That is your duty as a citizen of a democracy. To my three panelists, thank you for speaking with us and constantly helping us understand this problem. We wish very good luck to the farmers who are now on the, out on the streets right now in the cold. Hopefully they stay safe and they stay healthy, especially in a pandemic year. For now, good night and thank you.